before the internet, I went scouring through all these martial arts magazines, and I found this full-page ad of a Navy SEAL hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
And right at the top, it said, learn how to be an unbeatable street fighter. And I was like, yo, he's talking to me. He's talking to me.
Oh, man.
That's that finger pointing at you.
Yeah.
We want you.
Yeah.
Take my money.
Exactly.
Take my money and use it.
So, yeah.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Kit and the Brit. I'm Kit, and everyone's favorite Brit, Sean Hinds.
Hi.
And today we're super excited. We have a very special guest. It's been a staple on the East Coast Muay Thai scene. Coach, gym owner, referee. Give a special applause to Chris Romulo. Hey. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an honor.
For those that don't know you, give a little introduction about yourself.
Chris Romulo. I was born and raised in Queens. I got into Muay Thai back in the 90s. And ever since that one moment with Muay Thai, I've never looked back, man. I've tried to give back in all different ways. I've given my heart to the sport for, I don't know, how many years is that? The math on me is not that good, but
Probably 20
Almost
plus.
there, almost there,
yeah. So I'm a husband. I'm a father. I try to do it all, man. Try to do it all.
Amazing. You're one of the only reasons I used to go out to Far Rockaway because the beaches suck over there. But you used to own a gym out there and you used to throw fights out there. So tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first, I guess I'll go back to the city days when I was first trying to build my program out of Church Street Boxing Gym and other locations. I was just clueless. I started to try to build my student base, and I had no clue what I was doing. So sometimes they would work, and then they would last for a little while, then the program would fall apart, especially when I was down at Church Street. But then I met my wife in 2008 or 9, and once I met her, that was like the catalyst for us to say, all right, let's build this program. Let's move out to Rockaway Beach. And funny enough, I'm born and raised in Queens. My wife, she's raised in New Jersey, she was the one who introduced me to Rockaway Beach. Because growing up, being a Queens native, like when you heard about Rockaway, you're like, all you thought was the projects and how rough it was. So I never really went to Rockaway. I never even honestly knew they had a beach, to be honest.
Right.
And she loved the beach. She brought me out there, and she was like, funny. It was funny at first because we didn't think about building the gym. At first, our first idea was to start a food truck for the surfers in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I don't know what caused that to change, but then we were like, all right, you know what? She loves boxing. I met her in the boxing gym, and obviously I love Muay Thai, so let's do something that, we love together, and we could share that with our neighborhood. So that's how that journey started.
Nice. And how long was Crom Gym open for?
So we officially opened in October of 2000 or November of 2010, and we finally closed our gym in May of 2020.
Okay, so 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
What happened to the gym that you had to close down?
Well, the final time was we couldn't keep our gym open because of everything that was going on with the pandemic. We we had a landlord that didn't want to work with us, so our lease was $10,000 a month.
Wow, yeah.
So for us to be closed from March, April, May, and who knows when we didn't know when we were going to be able to reopen. We were just like, we're not going to be able to pay back all this money. By the time we come back and start over again, it's going to be like 60 grand. We're going to be in our, over our heads, to try to make up for that. So we were just like, all right, we're gonna close the gym. We're gonna ride this out, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And months went by. We didn't open up the gym, and we just decided, all right, this is. Because we lost, you came out during Hurricane Sandy,
Yeah, but, it seems crazy that you lost the gym because of the pandemic, but then you didn't lose the gym after the storm, which for me was just the whole place was just completely leveled.
Oh,
you know
Hurricane
what I mean?
Sandy,
Right,
yeah.
right. The whole place was level. There wasn't like, you know, it was just half a block, the whole place. So, you know, everyone was out, and to come back from that and then not make it after the pandemic seems kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I would say that the uncertainty of what was going on during the pandemic, we didn't have a vision of what could be in a few months, you know, because, you know, we were still in that phase where we weren't an essential business. So they just had us closed, and we're just, all right, we'll try to go do this online, you know, the virtual classes thing. And that, if anything, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. for
Yeah,
me.
I'm sure.
I trying to, you know, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever tried to teach
I
Muay Thai online.
I refuse to do it.
Yeah, Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu for the little kids. I was just like, man, I love the sport, but I don't love it. I don't love it this much, man. I can't do this, man.
Yeah, I was watching coaches like pretend to hold the pads like online, like pretend like you're punching my pads. Like, give me the jab cross hook, and people via Zoom would start punching the screen. It was just wild, you know? Yeah.
Oh man, wild is not the word. Man. It was brutal. It literally tore my heart apart, man, to try to do that.
Definitely, yeah.
But the hurricane, you know, all right, it happened 24 hours. We lost the gym. But, you know, we could see the vision of rebuilding. Like, all right, this sucks, but, you know, we're going to figure out a way, you know. But I guess with pandemic, you know, maybe the energy we had, you know, wasn't the same. You know what I'm saying? After rebuilding from Hurricane Sandy, that was a huge toll for us, too, you know.
Yeah.
Not just physically, not just the gym, but mentally and emotionally. You know,
Yeah, I mean, the whole island was pretty much like I don't know, just leveled really, right?
Yeah. And look, people took off and they left Rockaway, and you know, a lot of our students took off and never came back. And you know, for me and Sara as a couple, it was tough. You know, it wasn't just the actual gym itself. You know?
Right, yeah.
Because that was pretty much all we were doing, other than me going back into the city every once in a while to train a client. That was our main thing.
Yeah.
And to lose that, and to have virtually no income, and we lost our home too. So we were not homeless, but we were without our own place to live for months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I commend you. That was a true neighborhood gym.
Yeah.
Because for those that don't know, Far Rockaway, you either drive and you go over this bridge to get to Far Rockaway. So when I used to drive over that bridge and come to your gym, it was just so lively. You just felt the community there, because it was almost everyone from the neighborhood pretty much. Far Rockaway.
Yeah, for sure, man. And you know, we started a scholarship program too for, you know, the underserved kids in our neighborhood, and that was our, you know, when we first opened up, that was our goal. We wanted to take kids off of the street that were kind of like me growing up, lost and confused, and give them an option, because that's what Muay Thai did for me. You know, it saved my life. It turned my life around. You know, so we wanted to do the same thing for the kids. So at that time, when we lost it during Hurricane Sandy, we were only 2 years in. It was literally 2 years to the day that Hurricane Sandy came in and just changed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a fairly accomplished fighter as well. Tell us a little bit about your fight history.
Yeah, I guess my first fight was in the early 90s. I guess we'll go back to the 1900s.
Bare knuckle.
Yeah,
bare
bare
knuckle,
knuckle.
right? Yeah.
But yeah, the way I got into Muay Thai was, you know, I was a knucklehead, man. I was running the streets. I was like self-destructing, and literally I got into not a Muay Thai fight, but a fight that I could have avoided, and I got my ass kicked in that fight. You know, I had my friend who happened to be there at the time, who, you know, refereed the fight, and he broke it up because I was getting my face smashed. But that was what helped me find Muay Thai, because after that fight, I was like, I can't let this happen again.
Right.
And literally, you know, before the internet, I went scouring through all these martial arts magazines, and I found this full-page ad of a Navy SEAL hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
And right at the top, it said, you know, learn how to be an unbeatable street fighter. And I was like, yo, he's talking to me. He's talking to me.
Oh man,
That's that finger pointing at you.
Yeah.
We want you.
Yeah, I
Like,
was,
take my money.
exactly.
Yeah. Take my money immediately. Yeah.
So yeah, I ordered. It was a 3-tape VHS series, and I ordered it. It was like $99. I was still living at home with my mom. I was like 21 years old, and the VHS tapes arrived, and me and my brother, my younger brother, we watched these tapes over and over again. And, you know, it had like stick fighting, jujitsu, Wing Chun, Krav Maga. But what really stood out was like when they put on the Thai pads.
Yeah.
And the instructor and the kid holding, they were just smashing pads, bare knuckle, knees and elbows. And his name, the Navy SEAL, his name was Frank Cucci. And I was just, yeah.
I remember that dude. He was from.
You remember the name?
Yeah, he was from Virginia.
Yeah,
he had a
that's
gym.
exactly-
Yeah, he had a gym down there. I remember fighting on the show.
Yeah.
where he had.
So you remember, yeah.
But he was like over the top though, because I remember like some of his fighters referring to him as like Mr. Coochie, which sounds a bit weird. Yeah.
That's
He's
a little coochie. Yeah. That's a little coochie. There's so many jokes that. There's so many jokes there. Wow.
Yeah, no, he was a bit out there.
Coochie.
I remember that. I remember that dude. I remember that dude.
All right,
Yeah.
good. I'm not making it up
Yeah,
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, this guy was, I was just like, I was in awe, man. I was like, you know, I came from a Taekwondo background.
Yeah.
So to see what he was doing on the pads on this VHS tape, I was just like, I got to learn that. So, you know, back then, you know, there was no Amazon, obviously. So I went to Chinatown and I went to the martial arts store and I found like these pads that looked like the pads he was using. And me and my brother, we would just like smash pads in the living room for months. Until my mom was like, "Get the hell out of here!" She's like, "Go in the garage. You're destroying my living room."
Yeah.
But from that moment on, like that was what got me put me on my Muay Thai journey. And then one day I was walking in the Bowery down on like between 5th and 6th Street, and I remember walking by this like it was like you know, like the gym that I started in Rockaway. It was just like a storefront, like a bodega, and I remember looking in the gym and seeing this like long heavy bag in the back. And there was like a ring back there with the ropes hanging off. Like the ring wasn't put together yet. And it was like dark and shady. I was like, what is that place? So I walked by. I was like, nah, I'll come back another time. But then I was like, no, I got to go back. I got to check it out. So I went back and I walked in. The guy told me, you know, yeah, you know, how can I help you? I was like, well, what do you guys teach here? And I'm like, he was like Thai boxing. I was like, is that like with like knees and elbows? He's like, yeah, exactly. And he was like, look, come back next week. We're going to have a Thai instructor here and you can start learning. And that was it, man.
Wow.
Who was the instructor?
At the time, Sitsutam Wacharanantakul.
It's a mouthful.
That's a Thai name right
Yeah,
there.
that's
You remember
Thai
all these
name.
years?
I hope the academy wasn't named after him because it would be out of business. Nobody would know what that
You
would
go
be,
to that
but-
place, right?
Yeah. But what's the name of that gym? Was that 5 Points? Or
No, it was called Try Fitness.
Okay, so one of the first ones in New York City, pretty
Yeah,
much, right?
I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was so new to it. I mean, I know Phil Nurse and stuff.
But
was
you had
on.
a lot of gyms that like kind of worked out of fitness spots.
Right.
Didn't really have its own spot, really. You know what I mean? You know, rented a basement somewhere that, you know, a gym was in.
Right, yeah, like out of a
Yeah.
crunch or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But Sean, I don't think any guest is ever going to beat this story. Because most of the time when we ask how you got into Muay Thai, people are like, you know, my friend bought me, I needed to lose weight. But you were at home with your brother trying to get deadlier at street fighting.
Yeah,
Right? So, like, you guys were literally like, we're not going to lose any more street fights. So we need to go order DVDs and practice in the living room to fight more in the street.
Yeah.
So how did that go? Did you go back and use some of that technique in the fights?
Well, I don't remember ever having any more street fights after that because, you know, after you start training, you humble yourself.
For
and
sure,
you're like,
for sure, yeah.
this is not what but yeah, that was the initial intention. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, nah, man, I can't have this happen again. Because
Wow.
at the time in my neighborhood, you know, there was just one other kid. Like I'll put his name out there. I don't know if he's still around, but his name's Edwin. And I ran into him this one day, and we always had this beef. And then just as one day we finally like, all right, let's settle it. I was like, you know, he got off the bus. I was like, what are you looking at? And then he was like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "All right, let's figure this out." And but looking back, like it was silly, right? Yeah, trying to be a street fighter.
Definitely.
Because how many times you guys have people come in the gym and tell you like, "Oh yeah, I've got like 100 street fights."
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And you're just
undefeated.
Like,
They're always undefeated too.
Undefeated, yeah.
Always undefeated.
I would have been that kid that came in there like, "Yeah, I just got my ass kicked, man. I gotta figure this out."
Yeah. I used to love those magazines. They're mostly like kung fu magazines.
Yeah.
And I remember cutting out and then sending money in and getting a ninja star, or like cutting it out and you get a pair of nunchucks, right? Like,
I should have just did that, man.
Exactly.
Because nunchucks are legal now.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah. No, that's a great story. Let's keep that on top of the list to see if anyone has a better story of how they got into Muay Thai. Nowadays, there's fights every week or every couple of weeks. But back then, I just remember maybe an event would happen every 6 months or 3 months, right? Like,
If you're
how did you get into fighting?
So, all right, so I got to go way back. So there was this guy in Staten Island. His name is Tom DiRespino. And he held these, I don't know if they were sanctioned or not, because obviously back then in New York, it was like the Wild West for Muay Thai. Like whether they were sanctioned or not, I don't know, but we found out about these fights they were having in Staten Island at this boxing gym. They had a ring. Me and my training partners, I had like a few other training partners that were, training with me. And it was literally 3 months after I first walked into that gym where we call him Tommy Ty. Tommy Ty was like, "Do you want to fight?" And I remember I was just like, "You mean and not get in trouble for it?" I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I want to fight, man."
Yeah.
So he was like, "All right, there's a show or whatever, this event," and we showed up to this event in Staten Island, and yeah, that was my first fight. And like training for it, even back then, it was, now it's easy to find out who you're fighting. Back then, we were lucky enough to find out who our opponents were, and my opponent happened to be this guy. He fought Golden Gloves, and he fought in these extreme fighting, extreme cage fighting tournaments. And I'm just like, man, I don't know. Does this make sense to fight this guy who's already been in the ring and been in the cage? But, training with Tommy and my training partners, I felt confident that whatever I was learning, I was like, I'm going to test myself out. And, I went into this fight, with the fear. Everybody has a little bit of fear. But I trusted my training, and I was able to stop him in the second round.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That must have gave you a boost of confidence.
Yeah. Oh,
after
yeah.
3 months of training.
Yeah. I mean,
What was it? What was your feeling like the first time? I mean, the nervousness going to the ring, the first bell, the first blow, and then first, second round, and then the end of the fight.
Man, that's hard to describe. I mean, because there was fear. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say that I wasn't scared. There was fear, but it was more so like excitement. Because I had been fighting in the streets, getting in trouble, not really having a direction in my life at that time. And then just meeting my meeting Tommy Ty and him being like a father figure to me at that time when I needed it, I felt excited. I wanted to make him as proud as possible, because what he shared with me was from his heart. I mean, Thai trainers, some, not all, but some Thai, they love what they're doing.
No,
and
they
he
do.
just had this passion, and the way he would train us, like he was in there, he would train. This was before the days of, shin pads, right? Shin pads,
Right.
that's like relatively a new thing. Like back then, we weren't training with shin pads. He would spar with us, he would clinch with us. I'll never forget that one time where he taught me that I was keeping my right hand too low. Like he just put his left leg right on, his shin right on the side of my face, ever so gently, just to let me know to keep my hand up.
Right.
And to just experience all that, even for the 3 months that we were doing it, I was like, I feel ready.
So was it a very controlled affair, or was it just like two cats? Like you see most people in the first fight.
No, I don't want to toot my own, but I'm gonna toot my own horn. I feel like I came in there with like Muay Thai technique.
Okay.
And there was this one thing, it's the old school kick punch, combo, right?
Right.
You throw the kick, you throw the punch right after it.
Right.
Like I remember just drilling that over and over again. Like he would make us do it on the pads, do it on the heavy bags, and literally after the first round where I was getting my ass handed to me because the kid was outboxing me, he's like, do the kick punch. I'm like, all right. So second round came out. That's all I did for like the whole round. And then once I started like gaining some momentum in that second round, he was like clinch up, and I clinched up and I just started bombing away with knees, and he never came out for the third round. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Whatever happened to Tommy Tyan? Did you move on to different camps and things like that?
So after that fight, training, I guess, was like, obviously it was his passion, but it wasn't obviously his moneymaker. But he would build Thai restaurants up and down the East Coast. Wow. So then he kind of took off for a while. So we, me, Lamont, Greg, Royston, my training partners, we lost him for a while. So yeah, for a while, I was lost again, because I didn't have a trainer. So I kind of bounced around with different trainers, and I fought maybe a couple times after that first fight, but literally I never got back like hardcore into the sport until like 2000 or 2001.
I think I had that period where I felt kind of lost at one point. The guy I was training with, he moved away. And then
Edge?
Yeah. He's just kind of just there. And I think at one point I actually thought of giving up, But then I think I joined the Watt, and they had a few decent guys, Joe, Jamie, and Mike and stuff. And they're, a little bit of an English crowd there, so that kind of like got me back into it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then I just carried on from them. But I did have that period of feeling lost. Like, you go to a new gym, you're the one guy that stands out, and sometimes if you're better than other people, then you kind of still stand out even more. But then no one really engages with you too much. You know what I mean?
It's funny you mentioned that because after Tommy left, like I knew of like Phil Nurse and other guy, and 5 Points, Steve and those guys, like teaching out of other gyms. Like the way I grew up, I never grew up going to a gym, right? Like back in Queens Village, like there were no gyms, right? So for me to walk, I felt scared, honestly, to walk into a gym and try to find like a new place to train. I just got lucky. I found this guy named Francisco, who happened to be he was teaching his kids boxing, and he was a kickboxer himself. So he would work out of like a PAL or like another local boxing gym. So I would follow him around and try to keep my skills up like that. But yeah, I mean, walking into a gym and trying to find another home, I felt like that uncomfortable feeling. I can't pay a gym membership at that time.
I used to pay a membership just to hit the bag.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because I used to go in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the gym was still dead, hit the bag for an hour, 2 hours, and then leave, But then you find after that, I did that for a while, and then I found my people just coming and engaging more with me and then wanting to help, hold pads and work out with me. So in the end, I ended up joining the gym, but still paying $100.
And at that time, that was a lot of money.
Hey, you got to figure it out, I mean, even going to Crunch, I used to go to Crunch when I first started going, and for some reason, I always used to get it for free. I ended up going in there for about a year and a half, not paying.
Wow.
Hope nobody from Crunch is listening.
ended up getting good enough I could teach a class.
Nice.
And then as long as you teach once a week, but all locations were open access, you can go in and train. So pretty much that's how I ended up training most of the time.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful to see how many gyms are out there nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Because back then, like...
Yeah, it was a far and few between.
Yeah.
I mean, we would always catch people coming to our gym for free. That would never happen at one of our gyms.
Nah.
Somebody a year and a half.
I've already been on that program, so I know what's about.
What to look for,
You can tell who's suspect.
Yeah.
So you went on to have a really successful fighting career. And I remember in New York City, one of the biggest fights that was promoted was actually between you and Sean, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like it was just like exactly what he described. Two top cats like colliding, It was really well promoted. I think it was on Friday Night Fights, right?
Yeah.
The main event, Friday Night Fights.
Yeah.
And they built up a lot of hype.
But it's funny how that was a question that was always asked for like years before the fight even happened. Would you fight Sean? Would you fight Chris? Or I'd like to see that fight happen. And then for years it never happened. And then that 1 year it just,
Were you guys friends before that? Like, were you guys cordial at least, or knew of each other?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'd see each other. Yeah.
His thing was always when he won the fight, like his young son would come into the ring, so he had like the attention scenario, So yeah, we knew of each other. There was no ill feel or anything back then, but we kind of got to know each other more because his wife was actually a good friend with one of my old roommates.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So it's like a small world scenario,
Yes,
and from that we just became more friends. Even up to when we actually fought, we were friends.
Oh, that's great. That's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. So
Now, do you guys think it's easier to fight a friend or an acquaintance, or is it easier to fight someone that you don't know? Like, what would you prefer? Because I know when you don't know somebody, if you're gonna give it to that person, there's no ill feelings. But do you actually hold back when you fight someone who's an acquaintance or a friend, or do you not try to hurt them, or
It's a
is
fight.
it no rules?
I mean,
I haven't fought too many friends, so I don't. I mean, obviously we knew each other, but at that time, we were both on the rise. We were trying to make names for ourselves. So
Sure.
you're able to like leave that, that personal side of it.
yes, in the ring.
You're just like, look, I got to do what I got to do.
And at the end of the day, it's a sport.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, like, people, I think they miss that part. They look at the fact that you're fighting and you can get cut and everything else, and why would you want to do this to your friend? It's like we both, like you said, we're both rising up, and we both feel like we're at the top. And friends or no friends, for this 5 rounds, we're going to be almost like sworn enemies. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And at the end of it, then you leave it right there and then, like you leave it in the ring, right?
That's the beauty of the sport. I mean, for the general fan, they might think that fighters have to hate each other. I mean, that's silly, right? Because you waste all this energy on hate when all your energy's got to go to training to be the best that you can. So there's no hate between opponents. It's just, look, we both mutually dedicated, sacrificed our lives for this, and now we have an opportunity to show, how much sacrifice we put into our training, into our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that venue too was actually quite nice because it was at the Armory on 20.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And that thing was like a city block.
Yes.
You know what
the
I mean?
Armory
So-
was huge.
Yeah.
It was-
I think our fight was like still to this day the biggest attendance of any Muay Thai fight in New York City.
And,
Yeah.
and when was that? That fight was
That was 2010, I think May.
right.
Yeah, May
So
2000.
like
Wow, 15 years ago.
Right, it
15
hasn't
years
been
ago.
a bigger
15
fight
years
ground
ago.
than that one night,
Yeah.
So I think the only way we break that is to have you guys come out of retirement for a grudge match.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
Put me in,
yeah.
coach. I'm ready.
All right, give me an hour. I got to warm up.
Yeah. Well, at what weight was that at? Do you guys remember?
It was I pretty much
165?
165.
Yeah,
Yeah,
65?
Yeah, I thought
Can either you
65.
make 165 now?
Oh hell no. I've been trying to lose 10 pounds for like I think a year and a half now.
So, Sean, I'll start with you. Give us a little play-by-play of how the fight went. I know there's going to be different perspectives on the fight, but
I mean, I felt like I was a little bit more of the aggressor going into the fight. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember too many big moments from the fight. Because, again, when you meet someone, at the top with you, the heavy engagement is not so frequent in the beginning rounds, so it's a little bit slow, you know what
a
I
little
mean?
more cautious.
Yeah, a little bit more cautious, But, I mean, obviously I lost. But at the end of the fight, I felt like I won the fight,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, but, it is what it was,
How about you, Chris?
So you use the word cautious. I would say it was more just methodical. I mean, we were pros, obviously,
Yes,
so
yes.
we've developed more of a patience in the ring. So, I studied Sean. I mean, obviously, I wanted to win the fight as much as he wanted to win the fight, and at the time, my coach Jason Strout, he's even though he's a Muay Thai instructor, my Muay Thai trainer, he loved boxing. So we worked on a lot because we knew Sean had good hands and he loved that shovel hook to the body.
Yeah.
So we worked on specific things to try to not be as exposed, for his strengths. And yeah, I mean, look, I think it was a split decision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
a close fight. Yeah,
it was
I
a
remember
close
it being a
fight.
very close fight. Yeah.
You know, I feel like I did what I needed to do to nullify whatever his strengths were.
Right.
But, you know, again, when it comes to decisions, like, it's when you leave it in the hands of the judges, it's always going to be a toss-up, you know.
Pretty-
And
yeah, you're pretty
I'm
much
sure
right
both,
with that.
I'm sure both of us would have loved to have, like, you know, had a different outcome. But, I mean, as far as, like, you know, yeah, you want to stop your opponent to make it decisive, right? I wasn't able to do that. And, you know, Sean was, you know, same thing, like, you know, but you take it in stride because, look, that fight, you know, I fought this guy named Alex Ricci. And I watched Sean fight Alex Ricci. I don't remember how long before our fight, but I lost to Alex Ricci. I didn't just lose. I got knocked out. I got knocked out by Alex Ricci in the 4th round. It was a overhand right. I was coming for this guy. I thought I had him, and he clipped me on the chin and put me out. But I watched Sean, and after that fight, I watched Sean beat Alex Ricci, you know, and drop him. What do you remember? What round that was? It was a nice right hand. I'll never forget that. You dropped him with a nice right hand, and I was like, damn, all right, this is going to be a test. You know, I mean, every fight is a test.
But then, two fights don't make the same in another
Right.
fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. We call that MMA math. You know, if A beats B and B beats C doesn't automatically be A. MMA math. Everyone always does MMA math, right?
Yeah, but in my head, obviously, like, I'm like, oh shit, man.
Yeah.
This guy just dropped the guy that knocked me out.
Exactly.
I was like, all right, but you know, again, like,
So, Sean, how many people do you think was there at the Armory? Like, because you said it was one of the biggest draws, you know?
Maybe over 3,000 people.
3,000?
Maybe.
So, I can promise the crowd, if we sell 3,001 tickets, I'll make this fight happen. I'll make them out of retirement. So, click that like button, click that subscribe button. If I get 3,001 subscribers, we're getting these guys back for a grudge match, you know? So, no, that's amazing.
That's
So,
funny.
yeah. If we can find up, if we can pull up some footage or some fight posters, we'll make sure to include that link, you know? So,
you're hyping it up
Yeah.
now. Dude.
so Chris, after your fighting days, after the gym, nowadays we see you a lot inside the ring as a referee. So tell us a little bit about what it takes to be a referee, what you're looking for. I think the audience, like, there isn't enough documentary or there isn't enough details about what goes on inside the art of, like, just being a referee and being a good referee.
I would say what it takes to be a good referee. I mean, just like being a fighter, man, you have to have a passion, right? A real love for the sport and be a student. And, you know, sometimes people say you have to be a fighter, a former fighter, to be a good referee. I don't necessarily agree with that because obviously there's guys that I've worked with that maybe they don't have the experience that I have, but they're great referees. So I would say it comes down to how much you love what you're doing. But then, you know, studying, right? Just like any sport, you got to study and practice. And what I would say the main thing that I've been able to take out of my fighting career and bring into reffing is just seeing and understanding what fighters are going through and knowing when someone is in trouble, right? You know, that's not something that you can just teach somebody in a weekend class. That's something that you have to really, you know, you have to watch hundreds, maybe thousands of fights to really see that, you know?
Yeah.
And I would say that's the main thing, just seeing and understanding what someone is going through, whether they're doing well or not, you know?
Now, are you paying more attention to where people are getting hit, the facial expressions, like things like that? What's a short tell sign that you should step in and give an 8 count?
When someone is completely, well, especially in the amateur fights, when someone's getting completely overwhelmed and they're not answering back, even if they're not taking really hard shots, like if they don't look like they're defending themselves, yeah, I'll step in and give them a time to question their motives. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What was the other question before?
Just what are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to how many times someone's getting hit? Are you mostly staring at, like, the body when you're inside there? Or
I would definitely
what do you
say
think?
body language,
Gotcha.
right, and what's going on in the eyes.
Yep.
You know, if you can see that stare kind of change, like there's a glare change, like it's what is that saying, that deer in headlights look?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
If you get that deer in headlights look, like you're like, oh, all right, this person.
But sometimes I see some 8 counts given a little prematurely, but then like you'll see the one person they've thrown like maybe 4 or 5 punches, not one punch has landed, but the other person looks so gassed out that they look like they're about to collapse, and then the referee jumps in, gives the 8 count, but then now you're just giving him life with that 8 seconds in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it depends. Like in an amateur fight, you know, you want the amateur fighter to be able to, you know, make that decision, right, in that 8 seconds, to give them that moment to say, all right, do I have what it takes, you know? But in a pro fight, yeah, I would say no. You're letting them do their job, you know, to the best of their ability. But I mean, yeah, when shots aren't landing and they're not firing back, I think it's important to understand that, you know, in the fight world, it's about heart, right? You can tell when a fighter is their heart is in it.
Right.
Right. If you feel like, and for me, I guess that's one thing that will be beneficial for a referee, understanding what it feels like when you're in the ring and you feel like you've got a little more, or maybe you don't think you have a little more, is like seeing that heart in somebody. Right. If you don't see that heart, that desire to fight back, then that's the moment where you're just like, okay, let me give this fighter a standing 8 count. Let them think about what they need to do next.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
Have you had any controversial, like, stoppages or 8 counts where people protest and maybe you might have stepped in too early or things like that?
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
You know, I can't think of any right now. I've never had anybody complain to me or
I see.
the head of the Gamma Association about early stoppages. I feel like, you know, especially when it comes to protecting a fighter in the amateur ranks, like, you know, they're not getting paid for this. And even if you are getting paid for it, it's not a lot of money. So you got to make sure that this person can, you know, come back home to their family safe and sound and go back to work on a Monday, you know?
Absolutely.
Again, pro fight, different story. You're in here, you signed up for this, now you know, you're going to learn.
Yeah. Are there any up-and-coming fighters that you're keeping an eye on that's like, that you see are really like good practitioners of Muay Thai and that you enjoy watching or that have a bright future?
Yeah, there's one in particular. His name is France Pierre.
Oh, yes, for Evolution.
Out of Evolution. Yeah, I'm really excited about him because, yeah, man, he's just you could see his dedication, right? You could see his heart for the sport. Right. And he's, you know, obviously he's still young in his pro career, you know, but I feel like even as early on in his pro career, he's faced some challenges and he's worked through them.
Yeah,
so I'm excited.
I saw him fight that last Warriors Cup against a Mexican kid.
Yeah.
Tough fight, but I think he dropped the kid in the 3rd round.
Right.
Yeah,
but
a big contrast to the fight he had before that, where I think he lost the belt in the prior fight. Yeah,
Gotcha. So that's an up and coming fighter as well. Yeah.
And and his weight class. I mean, who else is in that weight class? Malcolm Hill.
Oh, he's a good fighter too.
Right?
Yeah.
So talk about an eventual matchup right there. You know, and that weight class is great because these guys could transition into one, go fight in Thailand. There's so many options in that weight class. So yeah, I'm excited to see how far he can take it. And he's not from. I think he's born in Haiti, but he lives in Jamaica, Queens, and I got to rep for the borough, man.
All right, yeah. So outside of your refereeing, we hear you do a lot of charity work. You're giving speeches at different schools and organizations. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my charity work is for the Alzheimer's Organization of New Jersey. I mean, they're nationwide, but yeah, I started doing that a few months ago. I signed up for a half marathon to raise money for this organization. Okay. And the reason why I'm doing that is because my father-in-law is suffering from Alzheimer's and my father is experiencing dementia too. Gotcha. And to see to see what they go through, it's, I've told my story many times. I never had a great relationship with my father.
Yes.
And now at this point in his life where now it's almost even impossible to try to understand, what happened, with us growing up. And now to see my father-in-law, who he's a retired cardiologist, and this guy was brilliant, and he has this amazing family, and to see him go through the experiences of Alzheimer's, it's tough to watch.
Sure.
And and it scares me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting older. I mean, not getting any younger, and to think that possibly that's something that I might have to deal with in myself, or maybe my wife. I want to do my best to try to give back to that community, to see if there's a way to figure it out, man. Because it's scary. I don't know if anybody out there listening has someone in their family that has Alzheimer's. It hurts. It hurts to see that. So I raised money for them, and then ever since I closed the gym back in 2020, like I've gone full time, like as a professional speaker. So for actually since 2022, I went back to youth speaking, because I was doing that while I owned the gym too. I would speak to local high schools and local middle schools, and it was like an anti-bullying talk. But the way I would spin it is like, there's always going to be bullies, right? We're always going to face bullies in life, but the real bullies are on the inside.
Yes.
The challenges that we face inside. If we can't handle the bullies that hold us back on the inside, you ain't going to be able to handle the ones that are outside of you. So now that I'm youth speaking and now trying to break more into the corporate market and colleges, I'm spinning it where it's not about bullies. Obviously, corporate office people don't want to hear about bullies. They want to hear, how can I be a champion in my life, to excel at work, or to excel at home as a parent, or to excel as a college student, or as an athlete. So, I want to take what I've done or what I've learned through Muay Thai, and not just teach the physical aspects of Muay Thai, but teach I call it the soft skills, the mental and the emotional aspect of Muay Thai.
Amazing.
Thank you.
And later on, we're going to post a link to how we can donate to your charity.
Appreciate it.
And also, how can the viewers reach out to you to get you onto their corporation or to their schools, or different ways to get you to speak?
So I have my website, chrisromulo.com. You can reach out on Instagram. It's chris.romulo.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn as.
Perfect, and we'll put those links as well on the YouTube video.
That. Yeah, thank
you. Sean and I sit around. We talk about, when we have guests on, we want to help grow the Muay Thai community and the sport itself. Where do you see the sport going? How much different it's been since you were training, and how do we continue to grow it so that people that have been invested in Muay Thai, continue to do Muay Thai, can actually make a full-time career out of it, or to be able to prosper from the sport?
I guess I'll start with that one first. Like, how can we keep promoting it? I've always felt like it's all about the youth, man. Just like any other sport, basketball, football, like, how old are these kids that eventually make it to the top? How old are they when they first start? 8, 9, 5 years old sometimes. So I feel like, that's why I've been involved in these sparring exhibition events that go on throughout the state and throughout the tri-state, actually, where you can bring, your young practitioners to test themselves in a low pressure environment, right? Where you don't have to worry about win or lose. They're basically scrimmages, But I would say the youth, man. I mean, as young as you can, when we had our gym in Rockaway, man, it was literally, my youngest students were like 5 or 6 years old. It's tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's tough to when a parent, especially when a parent brings in a kid, and maybe the kid doesn't necessarily want to train Muay Thai, like they're just bringing there, just to have something for them to do. But, when you find that kid at 6, 7, 8 years old who really loves it, I'm sure you guys have seen it in the sport, and they stick with it, man, it's amazing. And then it leads to that growth in the sport. Like, yeah, man.
But sometimes you find the ones in the initial beginning, they come reluctantly. After a period of time, they end up becoming the ones that actually do like it, you know.
True.
Right.
That's very true. You know, because they just needed that little nudge, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
get in there and find themselves. You
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, the competition, the level of competition is just amazing nowadays. To see how far the sport has come, how many shows, and you know, obviously it's great that social media is a catalyst for all this.
Sure.
You know, because back in our day we didn't have all that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good thing though, man.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. Well, it's been a true pleasure to hear your story. It's the first time I heard about how you got into Muay Thai and just the journey that you've been through and the adversity that you've been through with the gym and how you've overcome it. And now you're just giving back, you know, to the community, and we really appreciate that, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you, Kev. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Awesome. We'd love to have you back. Let's go.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Sure,
Chris.
sure.
Bounce.